Okay, so let's start. Good morning, everyone. I am Gagan Kumar, and I teach history and social sciences at Jindal Global Law School. From Ideas platform, I would like to welcome everyone to this special edition of Nazariya, a critical dialogue series. This is a special edition because, in our continued effort to democratize the space for discussion, we have opened it to both faculty and students. It is also the first time that we will have in-person conversation with our guest speaker rather than an online discussion. Before I introduce our esteemed speaker, I would like to say a few words about IDEAS, the Office of Interdisciplinary Studies, which was established early this year. From its inception, at IDEAS, we have collectively striven to create a new research and training ecosystem by collaborating with not just JGU scholars, but also with researchers from different parts of the world to develop new ideas for interdisciplinary research. In this endeavor, we also work together with civil society, think tanks, and policymakers to connect with grassroots movements and understand their politics. While research remains one of the core areas of our research clusters at IDEAS, our attempt has also been to understand how research feeds into pedagogy and vice versa. In this context, teaching issues like caste, social justice, and equality for many of us has been one of the bigger challenges. We are very fortunate and honored today to have with us Professor N. Sukumar to discuss some of these issues. Given his immense contribution to the field and his long association with grassroots movements and work on Dalits, it is very difficult indeed to introduce Professor Sukumar in 5-10 minutes, but I will try. Professor N. Sukumar has been teaching at the Department of Political Science, University of Delhi since 2001. In addition to teaching, Professor Sukumar is a member of several academic and administrative bodies. He was the chairperson for External Fact-Finding Committee on Caste Discrimination, IIT Delhi in 2023. He is a member of Management, Monitoring and Advisory Committee, Indian Institute of Dalit Studies. He is the General Secretary for Association of Academics for Social Justice, Delhi. He is also a member of Standing Committee on Education, Training and Orientation at Vivagiri National Labour Institute, Ministry of Labour and Employment. And this is a long list. I've just mentioned a few of the responsibilities that he's taken. Professor Sukumar writes regularly in journals, magazines, and newspapers, particularly on caste discrimination in educational institutions. His book, published in the year 2022 from Routledge, London, was titled Caste Discrimination and Exclusion in Indian Universities, A Critical Reflection. In addition to recently co-authoring Unwanted Citizens, Dalit in Search of Homeland, published by Routledge, he has also co-edited The Journey of Caste, Voices from the Margins, published last year. What brings uniqueness and rigor to Professor Sukumar's writing is that his research is based on real-life experiences. His writings give us a window to the social economic worlds of Dalits, their suffering, their traumas, their struggles, and their achievements in the face of adversity. His work forces us to question, to think, and to rethink about the society we live in and the many forms of inequalities that exist in it. Please join me in welcoming Professor Sukumar again. The title of his talk is Academic Outsiders, Caste Planning in Classrooms.
First of all, I would like to thank Jindal Global University, particularly Gagan, who asked me to be part of this deliberation, which we'll be having. And also, I thank friends, Swapnil is there, colleagues are there. I may not able to name everyone, Jadu, whom I know personally, and also other colleagues. And also mostly, my student friends. Thank you once again for this warm welcome. Today, what I'm going to rather speak to engage. Speaking would be one-sided thing, because I also, for the past 24 years, as part of my career, I'm part of Delhi University, and I also believe in learning rather than one-sided engagement. So therefore, new scholarships comes out. So it's a continuous engagement with multiple student communities within the campus is an outcome of this work, in fact. I would like to just, give you the immediate context and how this entire idea came in my mind. And then I'll take this towards to my the first part where I will be discussing that what made me to seriously think about this work. Second part, how did my research engaged with these issues, and what would be the future. That's another thing which I'm seriously thinking. Such a book has created, if not a debate in a sense that it was supposed to be, but yes, it created a debate, and what should be the next step towards in this academic journey. I don't know how many of you have gone through the newspaper or even the report a couple of days before on Wednesday. I would like to drag your attention that the most worrisome part is that this is National Crime Record Bureau. The student suicides has been doubled over a period of time. So that is most worrisome part. Students in general, I am saying. Okay? They have surpassed, farmers used to be much more victims of suicides. Okay? Students are now at a maximum level, maximum place where they are occupying in these suicides. That's one thing which is very, very worrisome thing. Now, why is that it is happening? And secondly, in the month of June, again, new normal. 10 days before, I was just surfing that, there was a news that in IIT Gauhati, there was a student's, suicide. If I give the data, 37 across 23 IITs last year, students committed suicide. And particularly these students, none than majority are from socially marginalized background. Okay? I'm categorically saying it is not that all these students are only SC/ST OBCs, but yes, there are some unreserved. Okay? Now my title of the quota's children has neutralized this quota identity for everybody, not for only reserved. Let me put it in this way. Okay? Now, I studied in Hyderabad University for almost 9.5 years. I spent 9.5 years from 1991 when I started my journey as a young student like you. It was a hype of Mandal agitation for reservations. Therefore, the quota child, the title, within the title it comes that, okay, the quota child is speaking, and then therefore, the entire debate would be which revolves around quota. No, I'm not going to do that. So when there was a huge, agitation, my journey started from there. Over a period of time, I witnessed 7 to 8 suicides in the campus where I was student part of it. So I never realized that why is that this tension within the classroom, the tension within the academic spaces exists at all. Losing life is a serious thing. Nobody wants to die. Is there anyone wants to die in this room? If yes, that means it is not the problem of that particular student, but it is the problem of the system, problem of the society. I see in that way. Anyway, I don't want to get much into that. So, I left campus in 2001. So for my utter shock, one day I saw the news that there was a student who committed suicide in the hostel where I stayed for almost 6 to 7 years. I literally broke down. I didn't get sleep. That what is happening, because as a student I witnessed 7 such incidents. Then I came, I joined in DU, and then, so then when I reflected back to what exactly happened, I tried to contextualize that, how to see these suicides, or how to see certain things, practices that are happening in academic spaces. Okay? The most worrisome part is that in the era of digital, and where communication flows in every second, you just click on WhatsApp, immediately people will see, and they revert back to you. We are living in that era, okay? Where this Senthil Kumar's body was found after 48 hours by neither friends, nor his wingmates, nor his hostel mates, nor his lab mates. No clue at all whereabouts, this guy. That made me to seriously think that enough is enough. Enough is enough. Let me see, how one can contextualize these deaths. One can call it as, there is a lot of debate on these issues. Some call it as institutional murder, some call it as suicide, some call it as, homicides, many kinds of, things. I'm not getting into that. My only worrisome is that the right to life, which is a fundamental to every citizen, which is supposed to be equally guaranteed, maybe, which is fundamental right, what happened to this 37 or even 2 to 4% of increasing of, suicides of the students? That is fundamental thing which we need to seriously think. So then I just wrote a 4-page, kind of, small story. It was a story. So I went to Delhi University, one of the constituent colleges, and I presented there. So then there was a lot of questions, that how can you, in a postmodern society where we live, how can you say that such things happens in a modern institutions called universities, where people are very equal, students, teachers, they all consider that we are all equals. It's nowhere that such kind of things happens. How can you say this? On what basis? Then I realized, for a social scientist, you need to prove with the data. You need to come out with a solid evidence. Otherwise, it can be, you go back to oral histories, oral narratives. Nothing will stand in front of the constructive methodological theories. And that has been already established in academics, that if it is something which is, substantiated with some kind of evidence, that can be considered as the research, otherwise nothing. So therefore, I started looking into the 10 universities, which in the first beginning, I fully acknowledge ICSSR, which funded this project, couple of, phases. Then this book comes out as the Caste Discrimination. And meanwhile, with that 4-page EPW piece has been, I worked on that. That's what I was just discussing with Gagan, that, Professor Satish Deshpande asked me, why don't you, it was a very interesting story. If I get into that story, it takes a lot of time. Even how did that has been published, that EPW piece also. I don't want to get into that, but Satish asked that, Sukumar, why don't you write something? So then what I did, I tried to get the communication which I had after the publication of that EPW piece. It's many students or many friends, they called me, my classmate had 1 hour argument with me. How can you, demonize Hyderabad Central University like this, which has given you bread and butter? Some faculty friends, some colleagues called me, they said, no, it's a wonderful piece. Some said, no, it's very bad, no, on your part that, when first generation of Dalits are entering into academic spaces, you are trying to juxtapose between, Dalit and non-Dalit faculties in the academic spaces. Lot of, things, happened. So therefore, I recollected everything, and then I placed that in my, this, Kota's Children, Pearls for Justice, paper. And then, obviously, as I said that, the college where I presented, and there was lot of, from the audience, some audience, they got disappointed. They said, no, you are valorizing. Then I thought that let me, work on this, and this book, comes in. Now, what I did, in fact, couple of other things I would like to bring to you, the immediate context, or maybe, the context which happened over a period of time. You might have read in the newspapers about Darshan Solanki's death in IIT Mumbai. And there was huge debate that happened. Okay? And within that debate, once again, after Rohit Vemula, probably Darshan Solanki's death created that much, debate among the academic institutions. And you don't believe, even in the month of, I think, March, April this year, couple of students from IIT Delhi. So overall, in 1 year, 6 students, committed suicide in IIT Delhi. So therefore, Darshan Solanki's death is a significant thing that, how one can contextualize this entire caste discrimination. And 1 year before, exactly 1 year before, there was IIT directors, 55th IIT's council meeting on how depression among students need to be tackled. So there was all IIT directors was called, and then they had a huge, deliberations that how to address this problem, how to cope, how students can cope up in general. I'm not saying that only particular category here. IITs, as I already said, how the pressure or whatever the reasons that students are facing, that they had a conference workshop at IIT Bhubaneswar, and the council came out with couple of major concerns that how to deal with this mental health and wellness of the students, well-being of the students, okay, and also reducing pressure, fear, and failure, rejection among the students. It can happen between the peer groups, or it can happen at any level within the academic institution. Okay? So you have peer group pressures, academic pressures, where you need to meet the needs, required needs to get the grades, higher grades and whatever it may be. I don't know whether you face here or not, but many a times, in many academic institutions, you have this pressure. Okay? And then, another thing, the reasons for dropouts. Over a period of time, there was huge number of dropouts in public institutions. That's what, maybe in private institutions, you pay and you come here so that, there would be a very atmosphere, at least, I guess that, very conducive atmosphere, but still there would be problems. I don't deny saying that, everything is good in private universities and everything is bad in public universities. I'm not saying that. There are issues within the context or within the space where you live. It could be private or public. The reasons could be different. But there would be pressures among yourselves also. So how to address that problems? Then, so therefore dropouts, 16,000 dropouts over a period of 10 years is not a small number in public institutions. 16,000 dropouts. Can you believe that people are leaving studies and going back? Can you anyone think that, okay, let me drop out and go back? Maybe you may have some other option. But people who come from different caste, I'm also adding class here because it is a very important component to understand in the context of public institution, gender, ethnic, or different identities for that matter. Okay? So how do they cope up? What can they do once if they, why is that this dropouts at all is happening in institutions? What could be the reasons? Anyway. So zero tolerance for discrimination. These are the main things which they have discussed, and they have finalized that, okay, we need to handle these things cautiously. Even after that, 37 students committed suicide. After this conference, within a year, you have n number of suicides that are happening. So where does the problem lies? If not only in IITs, university spaces, in many other things. So therefore there must be a robust grievance redressal mechanism, and psychological counseling is very important for these students who experience this kind of problems, concerns within the institutional setup. Now I'll come to the context of how caste plays in an everyday life worlds. It was a pandemic time, 2021. You can go back and Google, not now. An IIT Kharagpur professor, a lady professor. Go back and Google IIT Kharagpur, a lady professor, who literally showered verbal abuses on the students in an online classroom. Openly. I mean, it's there. It is there. It is not that something which I am constructing through in the air. So this professor abuses the children, particularly children who comes from the reserved quota background, reservations background. And and if you listen that conversation, that reflects the caste planning that happens in the academic spaces. Okay? So therefore it is essential, this is the context where it is essential to examine that how the sense of caste and its everyday journeys in academia. Okay? Some of you might have it in a different context. We carry caste everywhere. Caste is a baggage. Caste is a social baggage. We may agree or we may disagree. We might have experienced, we might have not experienced. We might have experienced directly, we might have experienced indirectly, directly or indirectly, subtly. But we cannot deny it, precisely because caste is a social phenomenon. The society where we live, caste operates. Inside, outside. Okay? We may say that, no, I am not a casteist. I don't, get into this kind of discrimination. Everybody is equal to me. Okay? But we need to introspect over a period of time that how it really operates. When I asked a question to the students in public institutions, probably private institutions, I don't know, maybe, one needs to explore more in future. Who are your best 5 friends? I just asked all the 600 students whom I engaged. I'll come to that, methodology and other things. I just asked, who are your best friends? So the best friends invariably, not necessarily will be from the same caste, but majoritarily from the same caste, or maybe the caste where they experience that the lower in the hierarchy within the campus spaces. Why? Are they comfortable with that particular peer group? Caste, students? There might be exceptions. There might be exceptions. I'm not saying that, okay, all the hundreds of 600 students said that, we only, have friends with this particular background. No, there are exceptions. That exceptions could be class. That exceptions could be language. There are many other exceptions where, people have background of friends, different background. Anyway. So this work, which I worked for 12 years, and this 12 years where the book comes out, the Caste, Discrimination and Exclusion in Indian Universities, and a critical reflection. Okay? There was 412 male respondents in this book which I engaged. And also the 10 universities, the background which I give, 5 universities of the state universities, and 5 universities are the central universities. Okay? And it represents at least, various parts of the country, which I tried my level best. There are limitations of any work. I'm not saying that this work is absolutely, wonderful work and, after this, there is nothing to be done, nothing. It's 1% out of 100%. 99% need to be worked out on these issues. Okay? So, 412 male respondents and 188 female respondents. Okay. We also had queer respondents. Within, we tried to bring as much as inclusive within this particular. We also brought subcaste, concerns also into this caste discrimination. Not just, caste discrimination, you talk about, between, scheduled castes and, other castes. But within scheduled castes also, you need to understand how, discrimination happens, Therefore, what I did, I don't give much more. I'm not going to explain you on the social dominance theory which operates. Theoretically, there are certain components which I picked up to prove that, how social dominance theory is necessary to understand, discrimination. At times, there was a statement by a politician, I don't want to name because, these days you say anything that becomes problematic. Though it is political, personal is political, or even, public is also political, but a politician said that, airports are becoming like cattle sheds. How elitism that, reflects, we ourselves, we feel very, I'm sure that if you visit Delhi University, you will, with all due respect on how your behavioral pattern changes there. Okay, you go to a public institute and you go to a state institute and you will find, a completely different world. When I came first time to this is the first visit and it's a different, environment altogether. It can be a cultural capital theory, which again I brought it in the book. If not in this particular context, the socio-cultural capital, okay, is completely different. You can't even imagine that, how a student is surviving in a state university without any kind of, lectures, teachings, and, therefore, how do we, compare these institutes when we are talking about the idea of equality or equal kind of, spaces. Okay, anyway, we'll come to that. So how social dominance operates within the classroom, when it comes to, particularly in the context of university spaces, who dominates whom? Why domination at all is necessary? Why do we consciously feel that I am supreme and the other doesn't exist at all in front of us? Is it that, our socio-economic cultural capital matters when it comes to completely denying and, degrading the other, other person who exists in the university spaces? So therefore, exclusion, all forms of capital which I used for my theoretical understanding. I engaged with scholars, work like Bourdieu, Sidanius, Hilary Silver, Amartya Sen, Michael Sandel, Ajanta Subramaniam. The list goes on. But I'm just, flagging few works which I thoroughly enjoyed, and then I thought, let me contextualize my study in this particular domain. And not necessary also sometimes. So therefore, at times in social sciences, we think that, we need to follow someone's or some dominant theoretical paradigms. Why? Why is that we need to only follow up certain things? So therefore, among young minds among yourselves, I don't know, maybe you with all kind of, I don't say it as within quotes advantages, but with this kind of background, you may flourish in such a way that you can create some theories to understand the subject which you are going to engage. It can be any subject for that matter. Okay? And what I did, in fact, it was when I tried to methodologically devise, I'll come to that core concern in another 10-15 minutes, 5 minutes, and then nothing is complete. I just started as a routine social scientist that, okay, it will be a qualitative and quantitative study. How do we understand this caste discrimination in university spaces? So you go, you conduct a study, collect the data from 600 universities, go back, and then make a table, say that, okay, this table says this data says this, so therefore discrimination is there. No. What I did, I tried to, that has one particular part I tried to collect the information. And the second thing what I did, I tried to substantiate with the secondary data which was available over a period of 30 to 40 years. The first article which, important article which I cited in this work is 1972 IIT Mumbai. The fellowships problem, 1972. From 1972 to 2021. An article which came on gender and exclusion in the context of Banaras Hindu University, which has been published in gender studies. So it's a wide range of, secondary sources, data, which I substantiated with my, the primary data which I have collected. And also, I brought experiences, like epistemological experience. You bring your own experience, that how do you apply what exactly happened with you as a student and as a faculty in Delhi University, and you problematize and try to identify what are these solutions. Then, I also gave very interesting chapter titles in this book, which I would not much detailedly discuss, but Caste in Academia, that was my introduction chapter, which I brought all kinds of theoretical components, many other things. And when I just finished my manuscript, and when I went to Satish Deshpande, he said, no, Sukumar, this work is not complete at all. He really helped me a lot. He said, no, you go back and write another 2 chapters. So it's a continuous engagement. So how do you strengthen your research story? How do you strengthen your research story with substantial evidences? So the second chapter deals with Dalits in higher educational institutions, a fact sheet. One needs to see that, who is cutting whose opportunities. We all debate, who is cutting whose opportunities, and, many things are, when it comes to caste census debate, everything is happening now, interestingly. Everything is coming out. And I'm very happy that, there are certain huge debate is happening on caste census. Who is cutting whose opportunities? Okay, this you try to see, and don't let us get into one hypothetical this thing, or maybe hypothesis is very important, but we should not come to a conclusion that, okay, this is what happening. You just reverse the gaze and then see that, who is getting more opportunities. Anyway, then the basic fundamental, my data chapter is unequal spaces, mapping caste discrimination in Indian universities. And the next chapter talks about the social history of Indian academia. Like, what I did, I tried to bring certain case studies into that. Shared case studies, many things. And then very interestingly, because when I started with suicides, so I tried to look into suicide studies in in India. For my utter surprise, the sociology scholarship or the sociology discipline has not produced much work on student suicides. Forget about suicides of a particular, suicides as not as a topic at all, So then when I went and asked, the same sociologists, they say no, there are works on, farmer suicides, many other contexts, but not on student suicides. When now why student suicides? I'm saying that from 2 to 4% means there is a 100% jump in this suicides. Okay, why it has not happened? So therefore, what I did, I brought the title itself I picked up from Rohit Vemla's, letter. My birth is my fatal accident. Social semiotics of Dalit student suicides as the title of one of the chapters. And of course, conclusion, social cosmology of merit and pervasive injustices. Now, I'm coming to what I'm exactly supposed to speak half an hour, and I'll wind it up. Who produces knowledge? The basic fundamental question what we engage when it comes to any debate, who produces knowledge in Indian society? Some feel that we produce knowledge. And it's an exclusive privilege. Producing knowledge is an exclusive privilege. Okay? But knowledge is not that, going around and, reading books. I can see a number of books in this classroom or in this hall. Producing knowledge, acquiring knowledge doesn't confine to only books or only a particular, or which comes from, within quotes, a privileged castes and communities. Okay? If you look beyond caste, class, and it could be, even the bottom line, certain, people who come from the bottom line also could be. I'm not saying that over a period of time, there are many people who are challenging these, knowledge production. Therefore, the first generation of scholars who come from marginalized background and their representation is not at all in the pedagogy. So they are saying that, look, no, it is not that only one set of knowledge is important to debate. Suppose if you talk about feminism, gender studies, okay, it was never part of, if you read Spike Peterson's work, Whose Rights? There is a work by Spike Peterson from Arizona University. She completely deconstructs the entire rights theory that is male-centric. So therefore, communities are coming out and challenging once if they got opportunities and getting into these academic spaces. So at once upon a point of time, who gains knowledge, who are eligible to gain knowledge is traditionally defined. And that traditional definition of acquiring knowledge and that psyche is still continuing in our academic spaces. So assessing knowledge has been denied historically, and this privilege has been constitutionally engaged to the marginalized groups through reservations. So until unless reservations comes in, certain communities doesn't have space at all in the academic spaces. You see that, therefore you're all on social media, I'm sure, but maybe social media, you are all into different topics or different, if you look into that, the not found suitable category that is being raisingly alarming in even after 70, 80 years of independence where the reservations has been guaranteed in academic spaces is completely bizarre. There are people who qualified. If I give you the data in IITs, IIMs, how many applications comes from SC, ST, OBC background, how many they are being admitted is completely bizarre. As if that they come through entrance only. It is not that, and the entrance difference would be 2 marks, 3 marks or 5 marks maximum. But we still feel that, okay, no, these 5 marks difference itself is taken over. These opportunities are taken over, but seats are lying vacant. It is constitutionally mandatory to fulfill all these reservations, which is not happening. So that's how, caste operates. Arey, ye to, in many departments, where I was part of, interviews, many places, I used to fight with them. Look, it is that, this particular candidate is doing well in Viva, or any other form of, text that you conduct, and you want to place them in reserved category. Unreserved category is nothing but whoever can compete, they are eligible, including scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC, and many other students. But we don't consider. Arey, ye to hamara seat kha raha hai yaar. The general, assumption is, no, ye to inko general mein de diya to hamara seat kya hoga. So it is like another form of reserved category. With EWS, that has completely, washed away. That's a different thing. So therefore, for the past 2 to 3 decades, the social movements in the society pressurized to implement, reservations, and all these, SC, ST women, OBCs are gate crashing into Indian Institute of Sciences, IITs, university spaces. So you see that 1990s, after Mandal thing, you have first generation of students who doesn't even have a piece of land, a small employment opportunity, or a money to start a business. They started getting into higher education, and they started articulating their concerns. Look, this is what I come from. Through these, case narratives. Anyway, so thereby the dominant paradigms of knowledge production began to be challenged. First time in Delhi University, I can openly say, and I have put it on record many times, that Ambedkar was never been part of sociology syllabus when you talk about caste. In Delhi University, with all progressive, scholars were there, part of that department. Anyway, so therefore you challenge, you say that no, until unless these alternative, the knowledge system is there, we cannot be, we cannot bear this exclusion. So pedagogically that needs to be included. So you talk about caste, you talk about affirmative action, you talk about the idea of equality. Forget about reservations or any other thing. The fundamental notion like equality, justice, constitutional morality, all these things has been debated. So therefore, so that has been challenged. So in India, caste is to be understood as a capital. That's where I said in between, caste is a capital. For some, caste is a privilege. For some, caste is a curse. Okay? For some, very proudly they say, you see that, in one of the articles which I reviewed recently, if you travel on roads, you will see that different kind of caste names that will be labeled on the cars and, vehicles, which we... Now, what is that? What does it signify? It signifies a sense of pride that you carry with that particular caste in public spaces. Okay? So this social, this capital refers to passing on non-material resources from one generation to another generation in order to preserve power and privilege. I'll bring you one best example to this. John Brettis, an MP from Kerala. John Brettis. Okay? And again, I ask you to go back and Google John Brettis' speech in Rajya Sabha in the context of how many generations of justice. He was talking about a particular justice who worked in Supreme Court. This Supreme Court judge who claims on his page, my great-great-grandfather was a judge. My grandfather was a judge. My father was a judge. I am a judge. And rest, you can think what would be that. This is called, you preserve power and certain privileges you pass on to next generations. Sometimes I go to some offices. I don't want to say that also, which offices. Okay? And you see, oh, my son and my daughter, they are in US. Oh, my daughter is in Australia. As if that India is nothing to do. As if that India is nothing to do. Indian academic spaces is nothing to do. But see the capital which you count. And that becomes a privilege. You pass on them, you pass on land. No, we should not live in a hypocritic world. That all these things came precisely because of the hard work. It is not that only hard work matters. It is what you had a cultural, capital matters there. Okay? Then, so for example, as I said, educational credentials, types of knowledge expertise, verbal skills, aesthetic performances, Matlab, when this EPW article has been published, a senior most professor who is retired, who said, Sukumar, your article in EPW, they have accepted to publish. मतलब knowledge किसी का बाप का जागीरी है. Knowledge construction is someone's capital. I said no. Yes. Now then my response was very smart. I said they are forced to for their own existence. They are forced to for their own existence. So therefore, aesthetic, preferences, how do you eat? How do you behave? Your behavioral concerns, or, in that, EPW piece, which reflects that, or even this Quotas Children, chapter, which reflects that everyday realities of the students. How do we run into relationships? It can be friendship, multiple forms of relationships within the campus spaces. Oh, बहुत गंदा है. ये तो देखने में देखो कैसा है. ये तो लायक है, बात करने का लायक है. मतलब, we have a sense of entitlement of certain, behavioral. I can behave like this, but not somebody else. So many people say, I'm telling personally is political. Many people say, why you speak so arrogantly? Why you speak so angrily? No, anger and arrogant is not someone's capital again. So a sense of such kind of aesthetic preferences. What kind of dress you wear, you will get valued for that. You will get valued according to your dress, according to your eating habits, according to your appearance or whatever it may be. And verbal skills. Let me put it very honestly and bluntly. I come from a regional medium background, and I might not be speaking a very anglicized accent, Oxford English, but I do speak English, and that is my English. Speaking skills, तो बात करने का भी नहीं आता. ये तो आंध्रा वो accent है या कुछ वो Indian accent also is a problem when you go to outside. That's a different thing. There we don't claim all such kind of privileges, but here we claim such kind of privileges. And then anyway, so the dynasties in academic educational institutions are nothing but elite educational institutions creates an exclusive clubs which confers dominance and privilege. Therefore, I call it as Oxford elite. Are we heading into such kind of elitism over a period of time with all kinds of demise of public institutions? Is one question, one thing which is challenging in front of us. Are we heading towards to such kind of divisive kind of spaces that it is going to create? आप तो English medium है, आप बहुत होगा. My own colleagues, they used to completely ignore students who speak in Hindi. हम ये सपने में नहीं रहना. We should not live in these dreams that people who speak in Hindi, people who speak in regional languages are not knowledgeable. Anyway, so therefore the socio-cultural capital attains significance in educational institutions. So these institutions categorize can be, see what happens many a times teachers informally they discuss, good students, weak students. I'm coming too closely towards to how spaces, devise. Good students, weak students. And who is a good student and who is a weak student? Who identifies it or who decides that? On what basis? Highly subjective. Merit is highly subjective. But we do talk about this, a student who has good verbal skills, good, kind of, attire, and, one can who argue effectively with the language skill, not subjective skill, is a knowledgeable person. We consider it. So therefore, it is important to understand their social location, the social location of the individual. Where do we come from? That is important to understand the entire trajectory of the discrimination that leads to exclusion, and discrimination, exclusion leads to humiliation, and it further leads to dehumanization. Students' deaths are happening not just because of they are passionate to die. This newspaper talks about, this is on August 12, 2023. This is a ground report of 2 IIT students, one from Telangana, one from Odisha, who hail, and IIT students in Hyderabad. This story talks about, many things about what I am speaking today in this hall. Then, so how this is affecting their performances? Suppose if I say that no, if I categorize some students in this hall that you are weak. Now, what happens once if you categorize them as you are weak? And once if you say somebody as you are good, then what happens is a very important thing. How do you cope up with these pressures? How do you gain ability to interact with the peers? Among peers, there would be a lot of, thing, with the larger campus and institutional spaces in the context I am telling. Therefore, the social worth is very important. No, many a times when we talk, in a very informal conversation, hum kya bolte hai? He or she is not worthy. Matlab, the social worth of the individuals, that plays a very important role. Am I socially worthy? That socially worthiness is also being determined by other factors in your life. Okay, all not necessarily, if I just pass on a slip to all of you and say that, how do you conceive equality? Just one line. And give you that, explain one context of denial of equality to you in your life. You will come with multiple forms of denial of equality, what exactly happened in your everyday life. Not necessarily caste, but there are multiple forms of denial of equality. That means the problem of social worthiness is there. Who is worthy to have attained the idea of equality? Who is not worthy to even attain the idea of equality is determined by our everyday experiences and with all other factors. So the lack of educational opportunities, even if reservation stigma, exists, how that, reservation as a stigma, ये लोग नहीं पढ़ते हैं. ये नहीं है, वही लोग नहीं पढ़ते हैं. हम भी, majority of the people who say that also they don't study. But it is easy to figure out by giving a context of reservation and say that they are very low merit and they don't study. But we need to seriously think that why they don't study, or why even such kind of atmosphere. You need to have such a conducive atmosphere to learn, to read, to engage with the ideas, which many people might have, in their spaces, One may have a private space, it's my room. Even we say parents go, you please knock and come into my room. With due respect, I am saying that, I am not saying that you should not do that. Privacy is very important. But at the same time, you have a space of your own privacy. No one will disturb you. Everything will be served in your front. So such privilege is not there. There are people who work at night, go back and study in day school. I mean, night, work. Anyway, so therefore negotiating this academic gaze with its specialized language, culture, mores and manners is a tricky enterprise for first generation SC/ST women students, or even you can further extend. No, how do I behave? Or how should I start talking to people? For me also it was a challenging, I'm telling. It was like, maybe many of you who might have experienced in a different context is different, that, how do you talk to your own colleague? Okay, if you don't know the technique, the knack, many of us have that kind of, nurturing. किस तरीके से बात करना टीचर से, so that the teacher will be pleased. Pleased in the sense, not in a, please, try to, I am being very, this thing, I am, in general I am saying. Okay, so you go, you smartly dress and you smartly, talk. So some teachers will say, acha, okay, yeah. In many interviews in Delhi University, I questioned this. Look, what is need for you to ask in any interview? If it is interview is supposed to be conducted seriously. In my own department, I questioned a very eminent scholar whose father was a big politician. That professor, I said that, sorry, you don't have any business to ask which school, which college you come from and what is your percentage in your masters. It is nothing to do with that. You perform, I said, you first conduct the interview on the basis which you called, decide the marks, and then you can discuss. So, you know what, oh, I saw you in Europe. After that, I am seeing you. Now, see, if there is an interview panel, and if one student walks in, and that student is acknowledged that, oh, hi, how are you? Hi, one expert says, how to make a student, much more, one particular candidate comfortable. Oh, I saw you in Europe in that conference. Oh, how are you doing? So what you are working these days? So you start with that. For somebody who comes, you are busy with your mobile. You don't have any question to ask. And you don't even acknowledge somebody sitting there in front of you, who are equally capable, who came through entrance. Anyway, so this is a tricky, the language, the cultural concerns, specialized. You need to, this happens in public universities or even other universities. Maybe, I don't know whether it happens here or not. I'm leaving to you whether you can introspect on these things. But you go to public university and just engage with students. Maybe you can do some internships with public universities, try to figure out, how things are happening there at that point. Anyway. So therefore, hence the suffocating, humiliating and humanizing ambiences makes them to withdraw from courses. Peer group, they don't talk, fail. Once if you fail, okay, in IITs, it's a very common phenomenon. In Vardhaman Mahavir Medical College, 26 students or 23 or 26 students, you go back and look into the data, they were repeatedly failed couple of years so that they were forced to withdraw the course. And there are majority of them there are 2-3, maybe 1 or 2 students might be from other background, but they are all from scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Okay? Why that is same reason that doesn't applicable to the other communities is a major question. Then, so in fact, I just cut short many other things. Therefore, the easiest mode of survival, how to survive? Suppose if these students come through quota, okay, how do they survive? Suppose if they don't want to drop out, it's a forced dropouts. And what happens? And if these students want to survive, what would they do? They keep their head down. हमको क्या लेना देना है इस टॉपिक से, या इस इश्यू से क्या लेना देना है, या किसी का कास्ट हो रहा है तो फिर मेरा साथ नहीं हो रहा है. वो जैसे सोच एक सेट ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स होगा, एंड एक सेट ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स जो है they try to survive by just keeping their mouth shut. They keep their heads down and they maintain silence, as I said. They collect the degree and they attempt to lead a normal life. They attempt to lead a normal life. There are people who survive. Okay, they say that, nay, even if I have to fight, after getting one opportunity, then, I will be branded as something antisocial or whatever it may be, so that the further kind of opportunities which I may not able to, get. So you keep silent and, keep quiet. So many students were unable to cope up with the oppressive system, either drop out, forcible conditions to withdraw, kill themselves. We have a number of examples like Rohit Vemula, Payal Tadvi, Fatima Latif. The list goes on. I mean, I'm not updated that, So we need to understand these acts as a silent protest. I don't valorize deaths. The politics of presence is very important. Okay? But, so, as I said, therefore this, so this is the problem. There is a caste discrimination problem within the academic, spaces. If you look into the everyday context, like, when I discussed about my own experience as master's student, my fellow classmates haven't shared the reading material with me. I still recall. Therefore, I say, knowledge is not the capital of few. It should be democratized. Everybody should have access to knowledge. Okay, my friends didn't share material. They gave me open university material. They said, this is what you have to study. No, I'm from Telugu medium, and my medium was like, different, ups and downs. So as I was not able to articulate, how the knowledge system operates in the university spaces. So I wrote these things in my first semester, and I was failed in one of the papers in my master's first semester. So I again attempted, and I got minimal pass marks. With one of my teachers, I had a confrontation. I have written that in this book. That in political theory paper, which I am right now teaching at Delhi University. In that particular paper, a teacher of mine, when I went to ask the feedback of the marks which I got, so the teacher just quickly gave this and he said, okay, you deserve only this much. So when I just quickly, flipped the papers, there was nothing. Either, you mark and you give some comments. So I said, no, I am not happy with the explanation which you are giving. He said, you come in the afternoon, we'll discuss. So after lunch I went, and this teacher, probably he took 1 hour, his painful time to reevaluate my paper, and reevaluate not in the context of increasing or decreasing marks, and he took a lot of pain to underline, circle, say that this, the entire paper, which I saw a very clean paper, the moment I went back after 1 hour, everything was, zigzag, lines underlined, it was been, completely, this thing. And so I asked, sir, 1 hour before I saw this, no, you asked me a detailed feedback. So therefore I am giving. It is not worthy to read at all. Then I asked, then how did you give me 4 marks out of 20? If it is not worthy to read, how did you give me 4 marks out of 20? He said, how many marks I should give? Tell me. I'll give you. I said, I don't want your bloody marks. I asked, what is the problem in this paper? He said, language is not good. I said, I agree with that. That doesn't mean that the subject, what is supposed to be written, is it there or not? He said, yes. But he said, no, but your language is not good. So see how it operates. How it operates. Anyway, that's the difference. So therefore, the self-privileged communities, whether it is students, teachers in university spaces, has a different way of understanding, caste discrimination. Understanding the idea of caste. In fact, there was a lot of policies which I would like to bring in. Government of India came out with a UGC, came out with a policy to address this problem. what constitutes discrimination, implementing reservations, equitable behavior in the classroom, laboratory, denial of necessary facilities for completion of courses. Deepa Mohanan case, the clear case in Kerala, MG University. She fought for 12 years to attain her basic degree. Okay? Denial. In fact, Rohit Vemla was a science student, then moved to social sciences. Many students, they don't even get labs to work in the, laboratories. Whereas the other students are getting more opportunities. I went to IIT as part of this fact-finding, thing. 70 to 80% of seats which has been officially allotted for PhD seats for SC, ST, OBCs they haven't filled. So you have autonomy, all these things, anyway, I'll come to that later. Strict implementation of provisions of the safeguards of the rights of the students in general. This 2013 guidelines has been sabotaged by 2023 guidelines by the same UGC. Now they don't believe in discrimination. They say caste sensitization, gender sensitization, but not discrimination because they don't believe in it. And you know what? Surprisingly, every university falls into the ambit of a law. Okay? They're all accountable to the public, and the law. And the same guidelines which talks about students' grievance redressal. Now, if I ask you in this classroom or in this hall, do you have only a common problems which this grievance committee will address? What I mean to say here is that women may have different problems within the campus spaces. Differently abled may have different problems in the campus spaces. The children who get through quota may have their own problems in the campus spaces. How do you jumble everything and say that these are the common grievances and this need to be addressed by? So therefore what? The policy that has been recommended by the then Professor Thorat, who was the UGC chairman, who headed a committee in looking into the discrimination in AIMS, Delhi in early, in 2000, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8. So this has been completely sabotaged. Anyway, so now I will just give you some data, which and from my book, and I'll stop. Viva is a major problem, and if you take, you sit in front of the experts, they decide the marks. Highly subjective. JNU went to the court to say that it is highly subjective. You can't keep 100% as for the Viva. You can't just keep on one particular assessment mode and say that they are eligible for it. Okay, in my study, the reasons the Viva as a reason for discrimination, where there are multiple responses also. Like in this particular case, what the respondent said, 368 students, they said, we do face discrimination in Viva. As I said, your first class determines. Your college in Delhi University, you come from St. Stephen's, LSR, and if you say, I come from Swami Shraddhanand College somewhere at periphery, or Bhagini Nivedita College somewhere at periphery, you don't even look towards to them to conduct interview. Okay? You are subject to, preferences, that preferences which comes into your mind. Well, then fellowships, scholarships is a major contestation. I don't know, in a public university, the issue of scholarship comes in. In private university, it doesn't come. Or maybe if it comes, I don't know whether the government, it comes. It doesn't come. So therefore, it's not at all a problem here. But whereas you get a fellowship, to get a fellowship, you need to do all kind of domestic work in the supervisor's house. This is what exactly it happens. And you have a very preferences, who is supposed to be given which task among a common supervisor is very different, From a teacher who has 10 research scholars, and you ask these 10 research scholars that, what is that, your teacher asked you to do. Some may say, my teacher asked me to prepare, a paper or do something. Or some may say, my teacher asked me to do some household work. Forms of dominance in the classroom or lab. This is very important. What happens in public universities? It might also happen here, but we don't speak. It might, with due respect on the teachers and the students and the institution, what I'm saying, that element which invariably comes in, and also we feel at times, caste becomes a significant component, 434 responses. Language, 206 respondents said language is a major problem for us. Increasingly ideological concerns also is becoming a major problem. Class differentiation, rich and poor, how people respect us, in the classroom. Here you may have, you all might have a smartphones, gadgets, you go back, swanky, lab, which you can work. But whereas into public, institutions, you don't have that much of privileges. So very few who has that access tend to, who comes from, very elite background within the academic institutions will be easily be identified, with their, gadgets, everything, language, many other, concerns. So the teachers and the peer group do fall into this. Appearance, color, gender, all these things. Gender discrimination also happens. Reverse discrimination also happens at times. I don't want to get into that. And then there are different, this will be the last couple of things and then I'll stop. Discrimination by teachers in the classroom and laboratory. Teachers are also the perpetuators of discrimination. Administration becomes perpetuating discrimination. Okay? 411 responses said yes, teachers do discriminate. Maybe in different contexts. Sometimes, a person who comes from lower caste background, but with a bureaucrat family background. So you may not face the worst form of discrimination who faces coming from rural, low income background and a particular caste. 156 said no, we don't face discrimination. It is not that, every student whom I asked, they face discrimination. 156 students said that, yes, we don't face discrimination. And most of them are postgraduate students. Yet to have this viva, and also the supervisor, research, denial of, signing on the fellowships, these things, okay? The last thing, table or data which I would like to discuss is that multiple various forms of discriminations by the teacher, how do they practice it? Marking and grading. Okay, 328 respondents said that yes, marking and grading is highly discriminatory. Okay, based on the caste. And then language, based on language, 262 respondents said that yes, based on the language, teachers evaluate, teachers discriminate. Favoring particular student, we have a favorite students, For every teacher, there will be a set of favorite students, And those favorite students will have more advantages of getting opportunities through those teachers. For whatever may be the reasons. Reasons are many, I don't want to discuss much in detail here. Okay? Ideological beliefs. It is increasingly becoming now which ideology you belongs to. So that therefore your seat for your PhD is secured. And for that, there are some people who by birth become vice chancellors. There are some vice chancellors, by birth they become vice chancellors. Over a period of time in their lifetime, 4 times they become vice chancellors. At the age of 32, you become a vice chancellor. And then till 65, different universities, different institutions, Anyway, so ideological beliefs, 193 said. Denial of opportunities, 186. Preferential treatment, socially privileged, 189 responses. Not providing reading material, 181 responses. Non-cordial working relations, 168. Gender-based discrimination by the teachers, 165 responses. Not allowing in the classroom debates, 163 responses. The list goes on. The list goes on. Okay? Now, yes, there is a problem. There are many things which I skipped out. Now, how to quickly, bullet points. No? There are 6 to 7 remedies to address this problem. We should not just discuss about the problem and leave. No, how to tackle this, how to address this. I started with what happened with IIT directors, peer group pressure, kis tarika se wo pona. See, many a times, maybe many of you, if you listen certain stories, you will feel very sympathetic. Am I right? Am I right? Sympathy is not necessary. Empathy is enough. What I mean to say is that if you extend sympathy, that means there is somewhere that you are trying to binary yourself with the other is something, no, I am nothing, but okay, bechara, I mean, ye to bahut struggle karke aate hai. Okay, so that sympathy, it is radical empathy by owning the problem. If at all we don't understand, if we don't wear the shoe, the shoe which they are wearing, you don't understand the problems. From outside, one can say anything. No, these are all, some exist, some doesn't exist. Second, caste as a problem or issue need to be recognized by the institutions. We don't even acknowledge caste. Caste kahan hai? Caste nahi hai. Log bolte hai caste nahi hai. Until unless, see, you go to the doctor diagnoses the history of the problem and then try to give the treatment. Instead of saying that, okay, you give this medicine, he's not a good doctor, he or she, whoever it may be. So how do we address that? You need to understand the caste and the problems of the caste within the society, apply that and see that, okay, this is the problem and this need to be addressed. See, for example, gender and ragging problem has been addressed. Ragging is a crime? Crime or not? And you know how ragging ka law jo, criminal law jo aaya? You should read about it. Of course, you are all law students, many of you. You might be knowing about it. A topmost bureaucrat's son was a victim of ragging. Till then, ragging was, yes, it was debated, but not taken so seriously by the courts. This son's father determinedly fought that no student should die because of the ragging. Therefore, he convinced bureaucracy. He lobbied bureaucracy. He lobbied judiciary to come out with this law. For caste, is there anybody to lobby? To say that, okay, we need a law to address this problem. So like gender is also very, we are very gender sensitive. Campuses, there is a law, Vishaka, and then, many other things are there. So therefore, this caste need to be recognized and therefore problem can be addressed. What I proposed is that auditing. You audit everything. You audit everything from top to bottom with the policy. But why don't you audit the dropouts, reservation policy, discrimination patterns, and exclusion? You just simply see that, how many students are dropped out, why they dropped out, how many students got into the general category, and how many students got first class, how many students got failed. Map 10 years data, that's it. And you will come to know where is the problem located. And if you don't, the 6 of the IIT directors, openly they said, and they went and they said, we don't want to implement merit reservations because merit will be compromised. Okay, if the topmost institutional heads are behaving like that, which is a constitutionally mandatory policy, and they are going against the constitution, which the law is not saying anything. The law doesn't say anything towards to them. Institutions are autonomous. When universities say that we are autonomous, IITs are autonomous, why can't they seriously think to address the problem, grievance redressal? Why should they wait till MHRD, UGC to come out with a policy? Suppose if anything happens in this classroom or in this particular space, it is he, me, you and everybody who is in the classroom is supposed to sit and engage and say that no, this should not happen tomorrow to anybody. Why is that some top institutional head is supposed to come and tell us that, look, you do this, you don't do this? You need to have that, use that, concern. The gravity, you need to understand the gravity and, immediately act upon it. Then, of course, there are SC/ST cells which are very dysfunctional. Within the decision-making body among all the institutions, this is what I repeatedly argue, that you don't have deans, you don't have heads who represent at the decision-making level. The administrative setup is so much so hierarchical that at top level, you don't have any representatives who come from this category to represent the community interests. You don't have. So that is important to fulfill. The last point which I would like to say is that you need to have, of course, law, I already mentioned, you need to have a separate law which can address the caste discrimination question, and it is very important to, I asked the question that how many of you say that, law is going to be, special law is going to address the problem. Around 400 students said it will address, but 200 said, how does it matter? Another law will come. But unless the mindset changes, we may not able to have the results, positive results. And the last thing which I would like to say is that, probably in any institution, public institution, private institution, you need to engage with these issues through research. Vigorous academic research is important. So you encourage students who want to do certain, studies, on this particular domain. It can be anything. It's not that only suicides or discrimination, caste, Any form of denial of equality must become a subject of research. Any form of denial of equality, which falls many other things. Okay? So therefore, what I conclude is that caste operates in academic institutions. Therefore, what I did, it's not that, I picked up this image. I picked up this image deliberately. Let me put it in front of you. I don't know how many of you, any one of you can explain this image? Just one of you. How many of you can, I would like to conclude with this. This image. The thumb is chopped off. Okay? Whose thumb was chopped off in our mythological traditional texts to place one person ahead and one person below? Who is that? Eklavya. Okay? I asked the publisher, I said, if you don't publish this image, I will withdraw my publication from you. I said this. It's on record. It's on record. For international publication, they did with their own, but for this South Asia. The reason why this is so therefore many Ekalavyas are there in public institutions. Could be private also. Okay? We should not shy away. We should not shy away. Okay? See the stories of, the experiences of 600 students which I have documented in this. If you get time, read. Otherwise also no need. If you think that, okay, this problem is not mine, this problem is a societal problem. It is, I don't say buy this book. For commercial purpose, I haven't wrote this book. It is available for free of cost in 6 online sites. For free of cost. Download it. Read it. Please critically engage on this. I don't mind. There are 12 reviews which has come up. Okay? There are, in some reviews, they questioned that, look, why only suffering, why not assertion, many other things. Okay? So thank you so much for asking me to be part of this thing. I don't know whether I have done job properly or not. I may not able, because of lack of time, I was not able to get many everyday nuances in academic spaces. It is a contested domain. The classroom and university is a contested domain in public institutions where reservations, fellowships, and many other things are primarily concerned. Thank you so much for patiently listening. I hope you are all not captive audience. Captive? Just joking. I mean, it's for a, to make it much more lighter. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Kumar, for such a passionate presentation, and I think it needs great courage to share one's own experience in public domain. I would now open the floor for discussion, and we can please feel free to ask questions. No one will be judged.
Yeah, please.
So we have a mobile mic here, and so whoever wants to ask a question, please feel free.
At times I tell to my students, my class is like, we have 250, 300 students, but those 200 students they attend. So I say that, if you don't have a question, that means either there is a problem in my presentation. Okay, so I'm not forcing, but still, let us have a dialogue. There is nothing which will be judged, as Gagan rightly said. Okay, you can disagree with me, but give the reason. I'll be very happy.
Okay, I'm going first just to encourage more people to speak up.
Yeah.
I want to say first, thank you so much for organizing, Gagan. I think this is one of the rare occasions where we actually talk openly about caste in this space in our university, where we often try to paper over a lot of these discriminating issues. But Professor Sukumar, I would ask you if there is any way, if you would recommend, because we, in a private university, we don't have a reservation policy, right? We don't have to implement any of these constitutional safeguards that you're talking about. And because our students often become part of a similar, the sort of echo chambers that you were talking about, can I ask you to reflect a little bit on how we can, our students, who probably come from a very specific kind of elite background mostly, can reflect on this idea as people who are who are not the recipients of the of reservations or come from quota backgrounds, because we don't have a system of quota here. How can they effectively reflect on this as people who are going to be future lawyers, most students in this room? How would you recommend they reflect on this idea?
Okay, very interesting and very challenging. Solutions, or maybe there are different ways one can engage on these issues. But fundamentally, what you need to do is that, as I said, first of all, let us acknowledge caste exists. If we don't acknowledge it, then that means, it is not at all my subject concern. So there, the entry point is that you need to acknowledge first caste, and then try to engage yourself with, maybe, with some communities, caste groups nearby. Please visit, talk to them, come to the campuses where, the reserved quota students, they come from, with value-free mind. Let me be very, there is a caveat here, with value-free mind. Let us not get into any value before we say that, okay, I belongs to this and they belongs to this. No, we both are human beings. Let us engage on that front. And then you see that how different you engage with different communities in academic institutions. Your internships, I'm telling you, go and work with people who are working with caste victims. We generally, what we do, internships and many other project works and many other things, which suits very regularly, whatever we are doing. So try to be slightly different. When you say that, okay, caste is existing, you try to see that, how maybe, one of you or maybe couple of you can engage on what happened in Farakkapur, 2 girls has been brutally murdered in UP, 2 Dalit girls. Okay? Can't we engage on that particular issue? Okay? With value-free mind. Okay? Why is that, it happens with, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen with other communities, but it is very less. And immediately the institutions, the way they function. See, yesterday I think day before I was reading some debate. What happened in Kolkata? How many of you know about Kolkata hospital issue? Raise your hands. Okay, now please continue. How many of you came to know about, be honest, about this Farakkapur 2 Dalit girls murder, rape and murder? 1. See, this reflects how the issue becomes, debated within social media, within media and everything. Mainstream, this Red Mic, first time Red Mic covered this story. That why is that, mainstream media has not at all covered this particular gruesome murders. 2 young girls. Hathras caste happened, issue happened just couple of 2-3 years before. Now what I mean to say here is that how do we own the problem and engage with that? And that is enough, I am telling. Not necessarily you have to go and change the entire world. That if you own the problem and see that yes, the other is also equal, that is enough. For me, that itself is enough. Probably, many other things need to be done. So academically, one can say that, maybe, I'm happy that, this reading has been introduced. I didn't know until Gagan told, honestly. Okay, so how many, it is not that, only this reading, there are many other readings which of different, scholars. So try to be sensitive. And you come back and reflect on what you go and see just nearby your locality. Just go and spend some time with Dalit families and their life worlds, and you contrast it with your life worlds. See that, juxtapose and see that, okay, how am I, where am I and where is they? Why is that? You just try to dig the history. You will come to know. Therefore, that itself, if it really sensitizes us, that would be a biggest contribution of this classroom or of this debate. Okay, I don't even anticipate 100%. Tomorrow you are going to become lawyers or good, you will be in judiciary or you will be in different kind of, consultancies or many other institutions. Now, how do we engage with these small issues? How many of us are sensitive towards to gender issues? Not only caste, gender, caste. Within gender, you have different. The other day, I was asking one expert that, who spoke in the Department of Political Science, this expert spoke on Indian feminism. Okay, fortunately, this feminism debate also covered Dalit women feminism and other things. But I asked that, okay, the entire generation, the decades of feminist movement, the word feminism is not at all acceptable in present day India. Pedagogically, why is that? So the expert didn't have an answer for it. For obvious political reasons, that's a different thing. Now, what I mean to say is that let us accept caste exists, discrimination exists, let us go engage with communities, that is very important. If until unless we don't own the problem, we don't even have courage to engage with that. And if we engage, then we will somewhere, say that yes, this problem can be addressed. Very vague kind of thing. There are many ways which can be individually address this problem. Interesting. These observations I am going to make in another paper. Because everyday experiences, matters to me. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Good morning, Professor. I apologize. I actually come from a place of ignorance over here. But would you believe that reservation should carry over generations, especially if one generation has objectively been empowered already? Like a very common example would be somebody becomes, say, an IAS officer through reservation. Then should their child also be entitled to that same reservation? I apologize if that question is hurtful, but I genuinely come from a place of ignorance and I would like your discourse on that.
There is nothing called hurtful here. What I would like to reflect is that Who said reservations are only reserved? We have a conceptual understanding of reservation in the context of quotas in post-independent India. In India, caste is not only division of labor, it is division of laborers. Who is supposed to work what? Who is supposed to do what? Even you have your merit, you are not supposed to do any other work. Okay? Reservations for caste being this caste, this work is reserved for this caste. Even you see that even in post-independent India, when I gave you this example of John Brettis, my great-grandfather was a judge, my grandfather was a judge, my father was a judge. Is it not so-called, within quotes, reserved? For generations, people reserved their so-called occupational mobility through their socio-cultural capital. We don't consider it as reservations. Now, even if it is reservations, quota debate, okay? 1931, after that, there was no any census. One small, how many, in fact, you will get shocked that comparing with 2022, 2012, 10 years, manual scavenging employment, and I can give you the data if you want, if anybody wants. From around 78,000 manual scavenging employers in public sector, it has been reduced to around 15 to 15,800 by the scheduled caste. But when it comes to the data, it is not that scheduled castes are doing this work, and many others are also taken out. What I am saying is that now population-wise, there is a number of increase which 50% cut, and with this EWS quota, nobody is a quota-free child today. Everybody is a quota child. Okay, you have no, I know, because you public institutions, those who come from different kind of privileged within quotes background, they are enjoying reservation. We don't consider resources as part of distribution. We consider only, we say that okay, these students are taking over our positions when it comes to reservations. Public sector is shrinking. No more reservations are being implemented now. How do we understand these kind of concerns? So over a period of time, with the work and the caste, positions were reserved. Okay, those who didn't get formal education and formal employment in constitution that has been provided, I'll put it in this way and say that okay, these people have been denied reservation, therefore they got reservation through constitution. But all others, they already have their own jobs. Who got education? Which communities? Why is that these communities own land? Why is that these communities owned entrepreneurship? Why is this only these communities own property and many other things? Why the other not? Because the other has not been given opportunity to study at all. Therefore, you see that you generational studies. You see, you ask first generation. Let me put it give my own example. My father was a 4th class employee. There could be many in this hall or maybe outside whose parents might have not even been employed. Okay, so we need to understand the socio-economic context and reservations. Reservations came through this an idea of discrimination, social discrimination, or caste discrimination. Okay, so you deny, so therefore you get this opportunity. Historically, yes, you need to compensate it. The historical wrong need to be compensated in different ways. Okay. Now, how far we can really accept this as an idea is I'm leaving to your wise minds. I'm not saying that you accept it, not accept it, but if we think rationally, that why is that the specific groups needs reservation is that they have denied opportunities. So therefore they need it. Okay? I mean, that's what, that's how you need to see. Yeah, you please. You can ask. You can.
So, to begin with, when we talk about caste, we mostly revolve around Ambedkar, and we have Ambedkar as one of our readings. In the Constituent Assembly debates, Ambedkar was one of the most educated persons ever, and he believed that education is one of the way we can solve the caste problem. Given that today, most of us are law students, and we're studying and working on Ambedkar, we're understanding his perspectives, and also debating or even writing this part on our exams. Talking about IITs, we talked about IITs before. 50% of the general category students agree with or are neutral to casteist remarks. So if such education that has been deliberately targeted against casteism, such awareness about mental health that our generation has brought, if that fails to solve this problem or even bring this problem down by a notch, then how will making institutional decisions, because these institutional decisions within the institution will not be independent of the social happenings within the institution. They would rather work on a way that makes the institution look better. Even if there are faults in the institution, institutionally faults, they wouldn't want to show it to the people. If government recognizes there's so many people, they would want to hide this data. So how does research help? Because there would be a clear bias in the results of this research.
In the research, in what sense? I mean, you are asking about the
Research even within the university conducted by the university, if the organization or external.
Okay. No, see, I will go much more fundamental, concern. Forget about research and many other things. The discussion is very important. Debate is very important. And I'm very happy that, again, I'm saying that you called me, you even if you would have not called me, that's not a matter. We are engaging on this now. At least, we would have not thought about this maybe 3-4 years back in this campus also. Because, we are becoming sensitive, not to an extent where we are supposed to be. I agree with you that, when as a chairperson of the committee, I asked IIT Deputy Director Delhi, or Deputy whoever on the second rung of the top, I asked, have you read SC/ST Atrocities Act? He's heading a topmost institution, educated, scientist, with all due respect on whatever the academic caliber. But when it comes to these concerns also, one needs to engage, no? So he said, no, I don't know. It doesn't matter for me. That's the response. No? I said, sorry, you can't say that. You can't say that. Because, if at all we are living in a proximity of a society, we can't deny social. We can't deny social. So therefore, fundamental, again I will go back and say that we are engaging. Now it started. I'm happy that you said that, there is a group in this university. Why only one particular group? You have n number of groups to debate, but in a very democratic fashion, you have an ideas. Clash of ideas is very important. Clash of ideas are very important so that, you will find some better solutions. So could be, we all need to come. The entire generation is in front of me now. If we are really serious to consider this as a problem, that's where I said caste, let us recognize caste as a problem. I think half of the problem is solved. Half. By कल कोई किसी का रिजर्व कोटा चाइल्ड है तो हम हेट तो नहीं करेंगे, सोचेंगे भाई किस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ये बंदा आया, या whoever it is, boy or a girl or any other form of gender. Okay, so we are engaging. We must engage, and shying away is not going to help. I'm telling shying away is not going to help. It's a very painful process, but it is important. It's not only caste, it is gender. It is gender or any kind of alternative sexual identities, sexualities, things. There are many things which happens in the campus spaces. We need to be more, of course, I at times, education as a tool to emancipate, empower, reason, which is not shrinking, but somewhere it is hanging around. The same person who speaks a different language, When it comes to their own experiences, then they will say, no, these problems also need to be understood. At outside them, one may say, no, these are all problems, not at all problems. When it comes to personal or when it comes to somebody else, issue which you closely own, then they say, no, this problem need to be addressed. Somewhere we need to be, see, in one sentence I could say that, how do you democratize spaces? How do you democratize relationship? It can be any relationship between one to one, groups to groups. So therefore, that is very important. Democratizing is very important. It is nothing to do with education also. That is education as one tool, but there are many things that need to be brought in. I'll come back to you again. 1, 2, 3, please go ahead. Maybe I can collect two, three questions and then two of you.
Good morning, Professor. My apologies if this was already...
Please be seated.
Thank you. My apologies if this was already covered. I missed much of the lecture because the class was going on.
It's okay.
So, we are aware of the fact that caste issues transcend religion, right? Because even religions which nominally say that there is no discrimination amongst them, so for example, Islam, there are still caste-based discriminations in these religions, right? So for example, I come from a Muslim background and I've seen many Muslims make statements like, we are Muslim Rajputs and they are Muslims of a lower caste. So this is not something that's only part of, Hinduism. But whenever I have seen any whenever I've seen any discussions related to caste-based reservations and the idea that Dalits who might have converted to different religions like Christianity or Islam, if they deserve reservations or not, there is a lot of ridicule to that idea that, they are no longer part of the Hindu fold, so there is absolutely no discussion over this fact. They simply don't deserve reservations. So what are your thoughts on that, sir?
For many of the problems, maybe you can just pass on and collect in case if certain questions which I can merge and answer, I'll merge, otherwise.
Sir, I had a couple of questions for you. First of all, as we are seeing a lot of caste appeasement politics, and this year we saw how in UP, Samajwadi was successful in gathering Yadav votes. So still, we are still motivated a lot by caste-based politics, and this election was showed us a lot of the real image. So how would you like to comment on it? And also, how do you think that caste-based politics at the end would help people, or it would just be a tool for appeasement to get votes? And secondly, I would like to counter you on one thing about, as you said, the family of judges, grandfather, great-grandfather, father. So you say that there is a capital thing and this guy already has his thing reserved in the court. But I think when it comes to judiciary, merit plays a huge role. Of course, nepotism is a factor, but there is also a fact that if let's say D.Y. Chandrachud was not that good, I'm sure he would have not been the CJI. Or if Abhinav Chandrachud is not that good, I'm sure he will never become the CJI of India. So of course, the factor of nepotism is there, that yeah, his father was this, his grandfather was this, but ultimately it comes down to your merit. Like for example, we all watch Bollywood movies, just a very rough example, but with the opportunities of nepotism, either you can become Hrithik Roshan or Arjun Kapoor. There's a huge difference. You get the platform, but ultimately it's your own merit. So how is it capital thing?
Got it, yeah. Couple of you, yeah.
Hello. Okay, so my question is on the reservation laws, specifically the consequence it's had. So one of the consequences I've noticed, again, I applaud the reservation laws, but this one consequence that I've noticed is it is creating a sense of divide in between the castes, and it is creating a sense of superiority, I guess. I mean, I know they're getting reservations in everywhere, but again, in people's minds, especially in people who are in general caste, it's creating a sense of superiority and a sense of hatredness towards them. And I've noticed this. I can't really put a category. I can't really put like a category of people who think this. I can see it in educated people, in uneducated, in rich and poor. I can sense that people are starting to hate the fact that they're getting reservations, and they're making they're finding reasons to hate that reservation. So how do you think we're supposed to, how do you think we should tackle that hatredness and divide that's going on between the castes?
Good morning, sir. So I have an extremely simple question. So I'm sure that there have been a lot of like student-led, not like protests, but just movements in general in organizations and institutions. So do you think that these movements genuinely leave an impact? And moreover, even if they don't, like I want to know how students can actually leave a greater impact than usual.
Good morning, Professor. I'm more interested in knowing your opinion on the concept of creamy layer. So, do you think that it creates a certain disparity within, because of creating subgroups within certain castes? And also how the government views creamy layer, because it creates certain monetary and economic condition rather than focusing on how it is impacted socially. So I'm more interested in knowing your views in that.
Good morning, Professor. I actually have a two-part question. Firstly, I want to know, do you believe we will reach a point where reservation as a concept will no longer exist? And secondly, do you believe that when we are engaging these topics, there should be a limit to how much we are engaging? Because the more, let's say, currently, if you look at it, aren't we engaging a bit too much? Don't you feel
Like,
that...
can you just...
I mean, let's say, for example, specific circumstances where it tends to cause greater ruckus, right? Because of them being this, them being that. Where in cases in the past, I mean, I don't have any on the top of my head right now, but where we see that simply because they are the minority, that they are kind of appeased to more against the majority, which does essentially tend to create a discourse of sort, where the majority does not like the minority a lot. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'll respond and then... Yeah. I'll respond and then let me respond. Yeah, okay, if it is last question.
Good morning, Professor. My question is that obviously caste discrimination does exist, but do you think from the other way around, especially the Atrocities Act, which is there for caste discrimination, do you think it has been used in a wrong way from the other side as well?
In campuses you are asking, or in general?
In general.
Okay. When it comes to caste appeasement politics, someone raised here, why is that this happens when it comes to few political parties talking about caste appeasement? Why don't we see the other way around also? Caste has been part and parcel of the politics from way back 1970s. You read Rajni Kothari's work, Caste in Indian Politics. It does play a very important role, Rajni Kothari's work. Okay, now I'm giving you just as a background. Now, the other parties also play an important role. Like other mainstream political parties like Congress, BJP, many other regional parties, they do bring caste appeasement politics, but we don't see that politics as caste appeasement politics. So we have, we consider that, okay, if the lower caste, the lower caste leaders who are leading the political parties, if they bring caste as an appeasement thing, and we say that, okay, this is a caste appeasement politics. But when it comes to certain political parties which are not headed by other, maybe the caste as a major category which we, give a binary, we don't see it as a caste politics. We see it as emancipatory, empowering politics rather than appeasement politics. So every political party is into this game. Therefore, the importance of caste need to be acknowledged. I'm happy that in the context of politics they acknowledged. Okay, caste is an everyday reality. Okay, doing politics with caste or not, I'm not getting into that. Okay, are we really debating about the politics which talks about development, which talks about reducing inequalities, many constitutional provisions that has been made, rather than just, give something and quota or whatever it may be, and, or maybe you distribute. I'm very sorry to say that, after 77 years after independence, हम अभी भी अनाज देने के लिए तैयार हैं. करोड़ों लोगों को अनाज देने के लिए तैयार है. Should we really have such kind? I'm being more radical. We don't want this kind of politics. But identities play a very important role in every society. Okay? How those identities are used for what purpose is a significant phenomenon. Okay? Can we use this same caste to address the caste problem? No. Can the same political class really come out and say that no, caste is a serious problem, let us address this problem so that there is no need of any kind of appeasement politics? Divisiveness. No, you use, yes, among different castes, you divide. And some castes who didn't get representation in politics, they're getting into this fold. They're getting into this fold. So they want to be part of this political system. So therefore, they get in this as an advantage. Yeah, on the merit, merit is highly subjective. Therefore, you need to understand, you read, cultural capital. The readings which revolves around cultural capital, socio-cultural capital. It is not that, somebody overnight, people will become meritorious. It is their social location, as I said. It is they come from certain advantages. So therefore they become. My question is that there are many other Chandrachuds within the legal system. The entire collegium process is under surveillance, is under debate. Why not, subclassification of collegium system? Why this collegium system is being, taking place when it comes to appointment of judges? Many other kind of thing. Why this, classification, subclassification? Let us say that everything will be based on the representation within judiciary. Why can't it be? So therefore, one particular person is meritorious, the other person is not meritorious, is highly subjective. So we need to read literature on merit. We also need to read literature on, social capital to understand these both things and then try to come to a conclusion. Okay? Maybe, this documentary would really help you all to understand how not only caste, but also religion, but also the political process. There is a documentary which is India Untouched by Stalin. If you really see that, across the regions, across the 8 states, how caste operates, across 4 religions, how caste operates. It is not that there is no caste in Islam, there is no caste in Sikhism, there is no caste in Christianity. It is there. Therefore, that is what Ambedkar long back said, wherever caste migrates, wherever Hindus migrate, they migrate with their caste. So therefore, caste does exist. Reservation laws, divided, particularly in the context of, hate, superiority, for that question, I would like to say that, it is not that society is being first time divided based on the reservations. For ages, society is divided. People hate each other. People hate in the sense, lower caste person can hate, but they cannot be vocal in hating. Society was already divided. It's a hierarchical society. So hate, divisiveness is already there. Caste division. Based on caste, the entire society is divided. Okay? It is not reservations. But yes, when it comes to the question of reservations, people say that, it is dividing the society. No, one needs to go back to the roots of the caste system and see that, it is not that reservations are dividing the society, it is the caste. And that need to be addressed so that other things can be addressed, other problems can be at least understood at later stage. How to tackle this hate and divisive. We all need to seriously think. Why should we hate other? Just because of the other. Suppose, we all feel that we are privileged, no? I mean, in economic and many other contexts. And when you compare yourself with the other, maybe, super rich, maybe there could be someone super rich, super rich, then we get that heat, that gaslighting happens. I am also experiencing this problem of the class. So the hate and divisive politics is something which somewhere we need to engage on these issues. I don't want to say that, but the more, what Ashish Nandi say that, the more we are becoming modern, we are becoming more traditional. No, this dichotomy of tradition and modernity is a problematic now. Okay, so how do we address, somebody said education as an important tool, but the same educated class is becoming part of this hate. Now, how do we understand this, the logic of hate, and why can't we love each other? I don't want to get into the political debate of, hate and mohabbat. How many of you know about mohabbat ka dukan? Please raise your hands. When I said mohabbat ka dukan, 1, 2, 3. I'm happy that, at least 3, 4. Please. Therefore, I do remember that when in between my lecture, I said, let us not live amidst the bookish knowledge. Let us go beyond. Let us engage with politics. Somebody said, yes, it is important to engage with politics to address these problems. How do we address hate? Let us engage with politics. We think that politics is dirty. No, it's not dirty. We need to, unless young generations like you don't engage with this hate and love politics. What for our education is? Is it merely for the degree which we are studying? And for that, if that is the case, then I don't think that, it is going to make any sense. Our degrees are supposed to transform the society. Our knowledge is supposed to transform certain basic fundamental flaws that are existing in this society. Then another couple of questions. Yeah. Students' impact on movements, you asked that question, I guess. Yes, it did. It has its impact, You see that, across the globe, student movements have created a sense of change in the political regimes. Okay? Much more example, before that Middle East, student upsurge. Okay, then Bangladesh. So students are very powerful. You see that, there is a movie which came on JNU. Good or bad, I am not getting into that. It's all again politics. But why that JNU become a center of debate when it comes to student politics? Not only JNU, TIS Mumbai. Unless if the students' movement doesn't exist, who will correct the system? Who will correct the system? Yes, there is an impact. There is an impact. Therefore, I do believe that students' movements are very important. Okay, as a political science, teacher or as a citizen of this country. Creamy layer, subgroups within the caste, social and employment impact, subcaste or, all these things. Very interesting, see, creamy layer is something which the OBC reservation is being implemented, the creamy layer comes in there. But the much more recent judgment of Supreme Court on subcaste reservations and also the creamy layer, comes in, which was not asked. Okay, but for whatever maybe the reasons this has come in, but how do we address this, creamy layer? It is not that, see, creamy layer is what? Already within the community who has reached to a stage where they don't deserve. Now, entire reservation philosophy is based on social discrimination rather than based on economic concern. Now the question immediately comes in, there are people who are debating again within creamy layer, subcaste of reserved category also, whether do we need to have creamy layer or not. So some scholars argue that yet the entire community, at least majority or even a good number of community within the scheduled caste reach to that level so that you need to have a creamy layer? But now the question is, once if the law says that, judiciary comes into the opinion, then it creates obviously the divisions within the communities. That is what is happening for the past many days after this judgment. People started saying, questioning that no, if you are happy, if you are not happy, if you are opposing, if you are supporting. Okay, there are and few also argued, why only for this caste? Now, can we have creamy layer among Brahmins? Can we have creamy layer among, no, there are poor Brahmins. Socially they might be privileged because of the caste, again within quote, but there would be many people who are suffering with some kind of economic ailments. So can we have, who gained this kind of, advantage within the community? Why can't we have it to Rajput or many other communities? There is an argument for that also. Why only you are giving creamy layer to only bringing creamy layer here? Why not we think about all these things? Some say no proportional representation based on the creamy layer. Good or bad, these are the arguments which are coming. Now, it is yet to comment on much on that. But among OBC groups creamy layer, me being part of many recruitment policies and also EWS. Best example is EWS. 8 lakhs, any person who is also already worked as an assistant professor goes beyond this 8 lakh cap, but they bring EWS certificate. OBC groups, many of them who have land and many other things, you bring already dominant communities within OBCs, they get certificates. So there are many things which one needs to get into that. But in the context of OBCs and EWS, this is being completely misused. Okay, it's good to have creamy layer among the already developed communities, if not in the context of social. But whereas when it comes to scheduled castes, I personally feel that the educated, mobiled or employment mobiled communities within those castes also seriously think about how to not to encroach on the space of the same community who are falling behind them. Now, can we call it as creamy layer or ethical moral question? It is yet to, but I feel that they should withdraw themselves from one generation, 2 generations, reservation, and they should not get into that. Do we consider the idea of, not broadly, reservations, like, what our last, question which our friend asked, yes, reservations does exist, as I already mentioned, that it is not that only reservations in the context of caste, you need to understand that. The so-called reservations are continuing for centuries. Who is eligible to do what? Okay, chaprasi ka beta, chaprasi hi hona. That is the general perception of the people. Only few can attain, performance in the temple or mosque, or again when it comes to religion, temple, mosque, church, who performs, ritual duties there, ritualistic, thing. So caste is a division, a division of laborer who is supposed to do what. So reservation does exist for centuries. We see only reservations in the context of employment, job generation, and it is for many years it is happening, So therefore, do we consider the idea of equality, equality is again, when it comes to, how are we really equals? Some may say, no, we need to become equals. Some may say, we don't need to become equals. Because I have my own privileges and I don't believe in this kind of, equality. But as a citizen of this country, as a person who have, in case, I assume that we all have, respect for the constitutional, ideas of equality, justice, we need to have. No, denial of equality in our own family, we say we have a problem, but denial of equality with the other lower caste, we don't see it as a problem. That's the problem. So, and in general, that's what I'm saying, I would like to conclude this, the SC/ST Act, somebody asked that, to what extent this SC/ST Act it was helpful when it comes to caste discrimination. Partly it helped because I also worked on caste atrocities in 7 states. Partly it helped, but again, there are contexts of misuse. That doesn't mean that that is being shown as misuse and continuously being tried to dilute the very much act which has come up with lot of struggles. With lot of April 2nd agitation, 2019 was the best example that, it was a dilution of this act and there was a huge agitation. Okay? But again, I would like to conclude with what exactly you are asking. We may have n number of acts. You're all, majority of you are law students. What Ambedkar said, I would like to end with that. He said, until unless society doesn't accept the law, you may bring n number of laws. It is meaningless. If we don't accept law, Domestic Violence Act comes in, but domestic violence also is being increasing. So there are many acts over a period of time. It came for a social change. SC/ST Atrocities Act. Okay? Property, 2005. Many of you are here who can own property equally with the son, the girl child. But many of us, we don't even think about these acts. So therefore, until unless acts are accepted by the people, no act can be successful. Let us strive for a equity and equal society collectively. Caste is not the problem of only untouchables or scheduled castes. Caste is the problem of people who invented brilliantly it. And now one has to bear with this and one has to come out with a solution. Thank you so much, Gagan, and my colleagues who are here. I made it much more in general. Enough. Thank you so much. You can reach out to me through my email. You can Google me on my Delhi University. Anything, any academic help, you're most welcome. As I believe that knowledge is not somebody's capital. We can engage. Maybe I may not able to address some questions here. If you are in Delhi University, you are most welcome. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Professor Sukumar, for this very engaging talk. I now request Uday to present a token of appreciation to Professor Sukumar. Even I was not aware of this.
You know what? I'm so happy whoever gifted, the entire group gifted. I used this pen. I was desperately looking for a pen. Thank you so much. And let me give a small, listen. Let me give a small example of this talk. I was sharing with Gagan. When this 4 pages of EPW article was published, one of my juniors who was a student in Hyderabad University, in the subject of email which he wrote, that 4 pages article was really painful. If you can read, semiotics of exclusion, you can read that title in EPW. So that friend wrote, pain is mine, pen is yours, keep on writing. So with this pen, I might write maybe many more things. Thank you so much. I believe in this.
I'd also like to thank all the students who've been very patient and hope we will continue the dialogue. Thank you.